Hello, you are about to listen to another awesome episode of the If I Had One Wish podcast. It's such a pleasure to bring you these meaningful conversations from friends and allies across the Wish network. If you aren't part of the network already, do you know you can join? Either as an individual or a corporate member, you'll get access to all the wonderful things we offer here at Wish and play your part in championing women in our sector. Follow the link in the show notes to find out more, but for now, enjoy the conversation. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the If I Had One Wish podcast. I'm Crystal Hicks, President of Women in Social Housing, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Jen. Hi, Jen.
Hello, Crystal. It's lovely to be here. I feel very privileged to be on the Wish podcast.
Oh, it's lovely to have you. So, Jen, tell our listeners how you're associated with Wish.
So I am currently a board member for the Wish Northwest region. I've been on the board for about 12 months now and have loved every minute so far.
Oh, brilliant. Well, it's lush to have you. Thanks for being here. So our guest today is the brilliant Laura Wood, founder of Invisible Creations, a social business putting dignity, safety and independence at the heart of housing design. So Laura Wood is the founder of the Fit for Our Future campaign and a recognised leader in innovative, accessible design. Known for launching groundbreaking products through Invisible Creations, she's really reshaped the way we think about inclusive homes. Laura works for ProCare, where she is dedicated to bringing accessible designs into both newly built and retrofitted homes, ensuring people can live safely and comfortably without sacrificing style. And Laura is also Vice Chair of Alpha Living, a specialist housing association providing homes for older people. So through Invisible Creations, ProCare and the Fit for Our Future campaign, Laura is on a mission to transform the housing sector's approach to future-proofing our homes and delivering real change so that housing is suitable, safe and designed with dignity in mind for all people at all ages and stages of their lives. Laura, it is wonderful to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Wish has a special place in my heart, as I used to be on the Northeast board along with Crystal. So I'm really, really happy to be here today and to chat to you.
Oh, it's lovely to just get back together, isn't it? It's really lovely to be back in the same space. So I'm going to start us off with a question, if you don't mind. So for those who are listening who don't know, what is Invisible Creations? And I suppose what inspired you to start it?
I love talking about this. This is my favourite thing to talk about, the history of Invisible Creations. So just in a nutshell, Invisible Creations, we create beautiful, inclusive home adaptations. So things like grab rails that support people to live independently for longer, but in a way that's dignified, in a way that's discreet. We started designing kind of inclusive grab rails, but we're now part of a much bigger business called ProCare, which means that we can focus on bigger areas of the home. So we don't just look at grab rails now, we look at bathrooms, kitchens on a much bigger scale, which is great because it means we've got a bigger impact. But in terms of where it started, so it's really a mix of lived experience and personal frustrations, I guess. I saw firsthand how traditional adaptations felt clinical, stigmatized, and things that were very much associated with being unwell or being dependent. So I watched my gran. It's a very personal story for me because it was all inspired by my gran. And I watched her struggle with, some of the designs that were out there. And I just kept thinking, we can do better than this. There must be a better option for as you age and your needs change. There must be something better than making your home look like a hospital. And she was struggling with her mobility. She needed support, but she didn't want to compromise on her dignity, her style, her choice, her pride. She didn't want to cover a home in those clinical products that made it feel more like a hospital than a home. And I think we all know, we talk about it quite a lot, how much the importance of a home is for us. So I think that was a real kind of big thing for me, is that how do we make that home feel like that for her again? There was clearly a gap in the market for this type of product that's both functional and beautiful and that people actually want. It's not just a need. So we kind of took it, and for me, it was a very personal mission of trying to strive to design something better for my gran. And then it turned into something much bigger. My gran did get her products in the end. But actually, it's something that spiraled into a business, and now it's helping support thousands of people across the country live more independently. So for us, it's really about reimagining what aging could look like, what disability could look like, and making things safer, but also making it more empowering, more personal. So Invisible Creations was really born out of that blend of personal experience, desire to protect that dignity, and a real passion for inclusive, people-centered design.
Brilliant. I mean, I think inclusive, people centered design sort of speaks really to the heart of what it is that Invisible Creations does. And, you know, that story of your gran, I know we've spoken about it a few times over the years and how inspiring she's been to what you're doing now. I read a stat when I was putting together my See Her campaign, and it's one that's really stuck with me, which is if you're a woman over the age of 65, you're much more likely to die or have an injury from a trip or fall in your home than you are if you're a man, which, was it really shocked me, the reality of that and how sort of if our homes aren't designed in an inclusive way, it can have an impact on women maybe disproportionately to men. So yeah, I'm just wondering through the work of Invisible Creations, have you sort of looked at the design of homes and like through a gendered lens, and what would that look like in practice?
Yeah, I guess being inspired by my gran probably gives me more that focus on that kind of female experience anyway, because it's her experiences I was kind of interacting with and studying, and I would say the majority of the people that we have designed with have been women. And I don't think that's a coincidence. You know, a lot of the women that we go and visit in these extra care schemes, in these independent schemes, are women living on their own. And I think we know that women tend to live longer. So their husbands may have passed and they're now kind of struggling on in those spaces that aren't really designed to meet their needs. So I think that kind of gender lens approach for us, it's actually recognizing that women often interact with the home differently than men. So I think that has a big impact, but people aren't really studying how that impacts. So when you look at the design, there's nothing there that's actually supporting that kind of female experience. And I think on top of that, many women, especially older women, carry that burden of care. So whether it's for children, partners, aging parents, so their relationship with the space is often quite layered. They're not just living in that space, they're managing it as well. So I think women, you know, that they're quite often quietly subsidizing that care system through their time, energy, and well-being. So when we talk about inclusive design, we're also talking about reducing that burden as well. And the things that we, I guess, question at Invisible Creations, if we talk about a gender lensed approach, is, you know, how safe do women feel in this space? How easy is it to carry out care tasks or even kind of just daily tasks? It's things like, is there enough lighting, storage, privacy? So what's missing in that home environment that makes their daily lives harder than it needs to be? There's a brilliant piece of research that I think came out just a couple of months ago, called, I think it's called Thriving or Just Surviving.
Oh, yes,
And it really highlights that, because I think there was a couple of case studies in there, and it kind of finds that the women are barely coping. So it talks about this kind of surviving model in the middle, which is your bare basic needs, but even those aren't necessarily being met when they should be thriving in these home environments. And I think there was one quote that stuck with me in particular, where I think they'd gone to kind of see whether they needed adaptations, and it was the husband that needed them. But because he had the wife there as a carer, they actually said, oh, he doesn't need the adaptation because she can help him. So I think that sums up how invisible that
Yes.
female care work really is, because it's something that's just expected. it's not necessarily something people think that they need to address.
Mm.
And that same study kind of, it backs up a lot of the stuff that we do, actually, because it also showed that women preferred home modifications that blended into the home. So
Yeah.
rather than it screaming disability.
Yes.
And that has echoed in all of the market research that we've done. Women care deeply about the look and feel of their homes, and they want dignity and functionality to coexist. It shouldn't be a compromise if you get one or the other. And I think, honestly, we probably don't know the full scale of how many people are relying on a female partner or daughter or a neighbour to support them with the mobility in the home. But we do know that the number's probably very, very big, and that many of these women don't know where to go in accessing support, don't know where to go for adaptations. So I think for us, designing with women in mind, it's not just about fairness. It's essential to creating that sustainable kind of care at home and health and well-being. So I would urge anyone to kind of have a look at that thrive, strive, survive kind of model, because we should be investing in thriving. And I think in our sector within social housing, there is those times where we are just meeting the bare minimum standards. And if you're thinking about actually women and older people thriving in their home, that thrive element, it's looking at things like, what is the sense of home, dignity, identity, autonomy, quality of life, independence. They're things that actually for me are basic needs, but that's something that's in that wider thrive model that actually we're not succeeding in meeting at the minute. And that's very much everything that we try and do in the design of our products, but it's something that I try and do on a wider scale of influencing how social housing providers are actually providing adaptations or just being more inclusive, really.
Yeah. I think it's really apparent that, traditionally, historically, that housing design hasn't really considered women's lived experiences. What are some of the blind spots that you've seen firsthand, Laura?
There are many. And I'm aware we don't have loads of times, but I'll pick a few out that
How
are
long have you
probably,
got?
probably some of my biggest issues that we find. So much of traditional housing design is built around efficiency or compliance, not actual lived experience. And that for me is the biggest blind spot. We design for structure, not for people. And that has such a massive effect on our daily lives. I think if I'm going to give kind of like specific examples on that, so if we just take the entrance to your home, majority of homes that have been built have a step to get in and out of that property. It's only in recent years, with a lot of campaigning to get level access, and even that is patchy. So actually that's a really big issue, because if you're thinking about wheelchair users, if you're thinking about anyone with mobility, people with pushchairs, prams, it makes it very difficult to get in and out of your home. And that is a really basic thing, right? Just stepping out of your property. So, I mean, my gran, she lived in a bungalow with step access to get in, and a bungalow is supposed to be specifically designed for an older an older person. But it's not. So I think it's simple things that we probably don't really think about on a daily basis. But if it was more inclusive, that level access would make a big difference. Bathrooms are a huge one. Most of the falls, slips and trips that happen in the home happen in the bathroom. They're not built for changing needs. They're not built for caring. They're not built traditionally to support independence. Baths can become very hard to get in and out of if you've got mobility issues. Even if you're young and you've broken a leg or an arm, it's very difficult to use those spaces. So the kind of bathroom design is a huge one. Kitchens is another one. These are areas we spend so much time in on a daily basis. But even if I think about my own experience in a kitchen, I'm really small. I'm only 5'1". I can't reach most of the top shelves in my kitchen. Like, bending down if you've been for a long run or something, trying to get into the back of those cupboards, it can be a painful experience. So if you're thinking about things being inclusive, actually it's just little things that can make a big difference. So you have kitchens that actually, instead of the oven being lower down and you have to bend down and pick something up that's really heavy, the oven's a little bit higher up, but it's one that kind of like drops down and comes out. You've got kind of surfaces that are either layered, or you've got rise and fall. Again, it's not rocket science. It's just simple design tweaks that if you did the majority of this when you built a home or you installed a kitchen or a bathroom, they would just make it easier for absolutely everyone interacting with that space.
Absolutely.
And then I guess the last thing really that has been a big thing for us recently is outdoor spaces, because they often feel like an afterthought. And I've been having a big push on anyone that's developing or designing extra care, independent living schemes, because the outdoor space is generally an afterthought. It's not something that they plan from day one, and they're often quite unusable or unsafe. There'll be uneven surfaces. There'll be planters that are really low down and encouraging people to bend when you really don't want people to be doing that if they've got mobility challenges. And we did a project with the Royal College of Art a couple of years ago, and we observed the environments and behaviours, and it was majority women. I think we only met one man throughout that whole project, and we were looking at how they interact with their gardens, because we know they're dangerous places, but we also know that they are so important for their health and well-being to get out there and interact with that space. Yet we were seeing people who were clinging onto washing lines, hanging off door frames, hanging onto unsteady fences. So it was really quite dangerous, but they were happy because they were out in that space. So they would rather risk a fall, risk an injury, but we're just not designing them to make them safe spaces, which is something that actually can simply be done. But yeah, that there's a lot of things, but they're probably the biggest ones that I see.
I mean, it's almost basic logic, isn't it? Designing around people and not function, but it doesn't seem to happen. And how are you managing to flip the script with organisations and convince them that this is, the right way to do things?
So we are huge on prevention. So we flip it, or I think we flip it by designing more proactively, stop being reactive. As a sector, we are notorious for waiting for someone to have a fall, lose confidence, end up in hospital before we ask, what support do you need now? We really should be doing this before things become critical. Often, if someone's broken a hip, ended up in hospital, to get that mobility back, especially in older age, is really difficult. So that being proactive, and again, it sounds like common sense, but often the things that are common sense are the hardest things to get anyone to do. It isn't something that should be ignored. It should be something that we're looking at a lot earlier in terms of intervention. So being proactive and prevention is huge for us. And also it's that inclusive, universal design element. We're trying to do a big education piece across the sector and also kind of across the retail space as well, that things are beautiful and functional, work for everyone, not just those with specific needs. So actually, if you do design with an older person or a woman in mind, it just tends to be better designed for everybody. So, I mean, for us, it means things like a toilet roll holder that's also a grab rail that can support someone with mobility challenges getting up off the loo. But also, if you've got a young family with a child who you're wanting to try and encourage use that bathroom independently, they can use that to hop on and off. So it's something that actually benefits a whole range of people. And that co-design thing's really important for us. So it's working directly with end users, and it is often women, the majority of the people we work with, and ask them what's working, what's not working, because that insight is so invaluable, and it helps us create those interventions that are not only supportive, but they feel good to live with as well. So it is about, catering for the need, but catering for the person behind that need as well, because you're more than just having a disability. You're more than just being an 85-year-old woman. You've got so many other things that we should be thinking about as well.
It really speaks to the heart of what I'm trying to achieve through the campaign, Laura, which is to sort of engender a sense of curiosity around what women actually want from us as social landlords and as employers. You know, we've got huge data gaps in terms of women's needs, and that's just historical. Like, what can we do about that? You know, it would take a long time to fill those data gaps, but we're uniquely positioned to speak with our tenants and to speak with our employees around just, you know, what would work better for you. I'm struck by something you said there around, like, we're not very good at prevention. I used to work for a social housing provider, and during COVID, I went to visit a lady who was in her 80s, and she needed to change her tenancy from joint to sole because her husband had passed away, sadly. And I just was really keen to get out into our homes and see our tenants. I went along with one of our housing officers to visit her, and she was lush, so lovely. And then a couple of weeks later, I heard that she died because she'd fallen at home and she was trying to reach the top shelf in the kitchen, as you've described. And she was on a box that she used all the time to reach the top shelf in the kitchen. But, you know, age had taken its toll and she no longer had the balance she once had. And she fell over, ended up in hospital and passed away. And I was dead curious. I was like, why was she using a box? Like, why have we created homes where women have to stand on boxes to use their kitchens? And then somebody who worked in the world of design said, oh, well, we use design standards, Crystal, for like designing our kitchens. Like, we're not just making this up as we go along. Well, what are those design standards based on? And did a bit more digging because I'm dead nosy. And they're based on the average height of a man. Therein lies the problem, eh? Like, yeah. And if we just base them on the average height of a woman, it would benefit, as you say, everybody. Like, nobody's being disadvantaged by that. So it's that curiosity, isn't it, around, like, actually, what is the data we're using to inform our decision making when it comes to design? But as you can imagine, like, through the campaign, right, people say to me, right, Crystal, like, you're on your soapbox here, you're telling us what's wrong, but we need to know how to fix it. Like, how do we put this right? And I know Invisible Creations have done some, like, great things to improve homes for women and for everybody. So yeah, have you got any sort of real world examples, or like some things you're really proud of that Invisible Creations have created during your time?
I think my most proud kind of moment, products, all kind of interlinked. So we've got a plant pot holder that goes kind of on the exterior of your home, generally next to a front door or a back door. Because, like I said before, there's a lot of step access to get into properties. And what we found, and it kind of started with my gran, and then that spiraled like you. I'm always very curious and kind of go down a bit of a rabbit hole of finding out facts and information, how we can improve things. So we were kind of digging into this, where a white plastic rail on the outside of someone's home is often seen as a bit of a target for identifying that an older or a vulnerable or a disabled person's living in that property. So when we were kind of like speaking to my gran, she actually ended up in hospital, had to get the white rails installed. And it was a really big thing for her because it made her feel unsafe. It made her feel like someone is going to come to my house and knock on the door and try and take advantage of me because they can see that I'm unsteady on my feet or that I've got a disability. So that for me really resonated, because I thought, wow, something that's supposed to make her feel safer in the home actually is doing the adverse effect for her mental health. And even, if you don't like something, you won't really use it. So even though the white rails were there, she wouldn't use them. She would hold on to the door frames because she was so mad that they had the audacity to be on her house. So we were like, there's got to be a better option than this. So one of our big things was kind of like, how can we disguise it? How can we have a grab rail, but how can we disguise that actual product? And we found that I think it was 43% of all doorstep crime links back to someone with a grab rail, a key safe, or a ramp. So we know for a fact that people are targeting anyone that's got that kind of product on the outside of their homes. So she was right to feel worried about having that on there. But no one was really questioning this. There were stats to show that it's an issue. No one was doing anything about it. So in steps me, thinking, absolutely, I'm going on a crusade now. So we made the plant pot rails, and it literally is exactly what it says. It's got a plant in it, it's got a rail on it for support, but it looks more like a planter than it does a grab rail. So we actually swapped hers over. So she came out of the house and we did a little reveal kind of thing with her. And it was so emotional. She was emotional, I was emotional, because it meant a lot for her to have something that actually she was proud to have on the outside of her home. And then instinctively, the first thing she did when she came out of the home was grab onto it, because she looked at it and thought, oh, that's lovely, and just grabbed straight on to get her out of the house. We get the most positive feedback for that product in particular, because I think it's the most visible for people to see. You go on streets that have rows and rows of these white plastic rails, and there is a lot of stigma attached to that kind of product. So that, I think, is huge for us. And we then did a bigger garden range from that, because we were getting feedback on lighting. So that was one that we kind of had a look at in terms of incorporating a light into a grab rail product for safety, security. So that I think is the biggest one for me. But I think the bathroom ones just are huge in terms of having some of those real simple things in there anyway. We obviously all have things like toilet roll holders, towel rails, shelves in there. So why not just make those things more robust, so that anyone that slips in the shower, whether it's any of us, which we've probably all done at some point, we can grab onto that to prevent ourselves having a fall and being injured. And I guess that's kind of like an example of a few of the products, but it's probably worth kind of saying about how we're using them within social housing, really, because we're working quite closely with social landlords to retrofit existing stock. So I think that's really important, is because we can go out and talk about this, and my gran got them installed, and then we kind of have stuff online, but that's only really kind of making a very small difference. I think the thing with social landlords is they have got the power at scale to make thousands, millions of homes safer. Many of these homes are occupied by older women and have lived there for decades. And we want to make sure that those places support that aging in place, so without forcing a big disruptive move. These women have created homes and become part of communities that they want to remain in for as long as possible. So we're actually working quite closely with landlords in terms of how can they actually change their approach and be more strategic. So if you are going to install mirrors, toilet roll holders, shelves, towel rails as standard, actually here's a better version that you can put in and you can leave it in, and that whoever comes across the threshold of that property is going to be supported from day one. Don't move Mrs. Smith in and wait until she's had a fall. So I think that's a big thing for us in terms of how we're trying to make a difference with the products that we've got.
I was going to ask, from an impact point of view, what sort of feedback are you getting from women who are living in these homes where you've made these adaptations?
So for me, it's always quite emotional, I think. Because I always see my gran's no longer here, but I always see my gran in everyone we go and meet, and I make it my business to go out and meet anyone that's got, obviously I can't see everyone, but people that have got these installed. And we visited a scheme in Durham only maybe about 3 weeks ago. And we met a gorgeous lady called Jean, and she was telling us how much of a big impact having the toilet roll holder grab rail has had on her life, which might sound like an overreaction, because people might be like, it's a toilet roll holder, get a grip. But actually, mind the pun.
That should be your strapline.
No, get a grip.
It's toilet roll holder, get a grip.
I'm actually going to steal that.
Brilliant.
But so she told us how much she's struggled before. So she said she would get stuck on the toilet. She would be stuck on it. And that could be for minutes, it could be for hours, because she physically could not get off. And if she tried, she was so worried about falling and breaking something that it was just a really, really difficult situation for her. So it's made such a dramatic difference to her, because she would like restrict her food and drink because she didn't want to go, because she was so worried that she'd be stuck sat there for forever how long until she got the strength to stand back up. So that kind of, I guess, risk factor for her was making her make kind of some dangerous decisions for her health. But she values her independence more than anything. She was such a strong, proud woman. I think she used to be a head teacher or something, and you could totally get that vibe from her. She
Yeah.
meant business, but it just meant that she didn't want anything kind of compromising her home. It was absolutely immaculate. And the thought of her having to get someone to come in and help her every day just to get off the toilet really distressed her. So when I think it was Sanctuary that we're working with, when she got that installed from them, it completely changed her life. So we went to speak to her, and she was just like, I can't get over how positive my days are now because I'm not sat worried. Like, that had such a bigger impact on everything that she did, which to us probably sounds a lot because we just don't even think about it when we go to use the loo. We just get on and off it without thinking about how hard would it be if we can't stand up without the assistance of someone or something. So that was really, really big for me. But we've had so many people say that they feel more confident, they feel safer, they feel more independent. And there was a woman, Kelly. So we talk a lot about older women, but actually, it's really big for a lot of younger disabled women. We've met quite a lot that it's, again, really changed their lives. And she, like, I've just found Kelly inspirational. She's in her late 20s. And she said she'd felt seen for the first time as a disabled woman. And she finds it very difficult to find products that reflect her life, her needs, her personality, because everything is very stigmatized. It's very clinical. She said it makes her feel like an old lady, a lot of the products that are out there. So she got products installed in her bathroom, and I went to visit her, and she said, this is the first time I've been able to use my bathroom on my own. It's the first time I've been able to shower independently. My wife doesn't need to come in and help me off the toilet every time I need to go. And that was huge. You know, she's young. She wants designs that reflect who she is and not something that labels her as disabled. So there's so many of these stories where it's tiny, simple little things, but they make such a massive difference to people's lives, their independence and their safety. That kind of design, really, of a home, of any part of the home, should feel personal. It should feel empowering, respectful. When women feel safe and they feel dignified at home, then it can positively affect so many other things, so many other aspects of their lives.
Yeah, it's a real ripple effect, isn't it? When a woman feels safe in her own home and empowered to be able to do normal, basic tasks, everything else is affected positively, isn't it? From your health, well-being, employment, everything really.
So, Laura, it's just brilliant talking to you today and learning more about Invisible Creations and the journey that you've been on, and just how impactful it is if we see women in our decision making and don't just take a one size fits all approach. We always end on our famous question. And the rule around this, right, is you're not allowed to ask for more wishes, right? It's just one wish. So if you had one wish for the sector, what would it be and why?
So that's a tough question. But I think if I had one wish for the sector, it would be that we stop thinking of accessibility and inclusive design as a niche or a specialist thing. We start treating it as something that's standard. We start kind of mainstreaming that approach to inclusivity, because I mean, imagine if every home was built with dignity, beauty, and accessibility in mind from the beginning. we're all going to live much healthier, happier, longer and independent lives. So I think that would be my big wish.
Brilliant. Oh, well, thank you, Laura. It's been such an eye-opening conversation. I already knew quite a lot about what you do, but it's been so informative to just dig into that a little bit more today. And yeah, I think I'm taking away that sort of that thoughtful design can be sort of revolutionary, and it can really change lives, but dignity should never really be an afterthought. So thank you for encouraging us to think about that today.
Thank you so much for having me. And just, I guess, as a final thing, to the sector, let's keep designing with care and inclusivity and with women in mind.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Jen, for joining us too, co-hosting with me. It's been lovely to have you on.
Thank you for having me, Crystal, and Laura. Thank you for the conversation. It's been really insightful.
And you have been listening to the If I Had One Wish podcast. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the If I Had One Wish podcast. Next time, we'll be talking to another inspirational female from the housing sector who will be sharing her career story and what she's learned along the way. And of course, we'll be asking again the big question: if she had one wish, what would it be and why? See you next time.